All right, so this is kind of like the second part to the video I just uploaded. I want to tell you this story, or I'm gonna tell you a story, but the story is basically why I do not do trips in the city next to the city that I live in. So I live in Hampton Roads. I just saw what could have been an accident. I live in Hampton Roads, and I live in the city Virginia Beach. Hampton Roads consists of other cities, but the main ones are Newport News, Hampton, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, and Suffolk. We make up the 757. But then you got, again, there are other cities, but those are the main ones. Our area doesn't really get that busy. So Virginia Beach, it's a huge area, but it doesn't get that busy all the time. And like this summer hasn't really been a summer because it hasn't been that great. Like it's not last summer. Last summer I was able to make $1,100 a week driving like 28 hours. I drive 28 hours this summer and I'm making like 800. And partly is due to tips, but I just went over a video about that, so we're not going to get into that. But yeah, it's not the summer. People aren't really going out and trying to move around like they were last summer and things like that, which kind of sucks. But if you're going to drive in this area, the best areas to drive in is Virginia Beach or Chesapeake, because you got a different kind of people, and these people are more likely to tip in these cities. And Norfolk and Portsmouth, not so much, and those cities have somewhat of a bad rap. Newport News and Hampton also as well, but if you get a long trip going over to these cities, because Newport News and Hampton is about 20 to 25 minutes away from Norfolk. It's about 30 to 35 minutes away from Virginia Beach. So if I'm doing trips in Virginia Beach and I see a Newport News or Hampton come up, a lot of times that trip is not worth it at all. Now, last week I did decide to go ahead and take a Newport News or Hampton trip, because I saw somebody, one of the Uber Lyft YouTube guys, mentioned how you should take those long trips because you're probably going to get tipped. I took the long trip for $26. It was a 52-minute trip in total, 6 minutes to him, 46 minutes to his location. I took that trip. I got $26, and then he tipped me 14. No, he tipped me 16. So I made it out with $42 for that. So it was pretty decent. Then over there, I got a guy leaving one of the colleges, Christopher Newport. He needed to go to the airport, which was in Norfolk. I picked him up. That was like a $20 trip. Picked him up, brought him to the airport. He tipped me, I think, $12. So I made $32. So in that full trip, which it was like maybe a little over an hour from going there to coming back across the water, because it's across the water, Newport News and Hampton is, I made the 70 or the 40 plus the 32-ish, so like $72 or something. It was somewhere around there. That shit was worth it for 2 trips. So it was basically like, $35 or a little, like $36 per trip. But Norfolk, like that's our city. If you look at our area, if you look at it, I'll show you really quick. It's almost like you see, Norfolk should be the city center, and then everything on the outskirts should be like the rural area. You see how it even looks like a circle, right? And then you have Hampton and Newport News across the water, Suffolk over here, Chesapeake over here, Virginia Beach. Then you got a lot of land in these places, which is why taking these trips aren't really worth it. And if this area got busier and if people tipped, it would be 100% worth it to take the trips in Portsmouth and Norfolk. But again, Portsmouth has a bad rep, and Norfolk has a kind of bad rep too, and people just don't tip. So I'll get around to that story. Yesterday, I did a total of 9 trips. I did 3 hours during the day. I did 7 trips during those 3 hours. I got $40 for those 7 trips. I kind of, a good day for me is when my trips look like 1 trip per $10 or $10 per 1 trip. So if I do 10 trips, I should have $100. That's a good day. That's a decent day. I did 7 trips. I got $40, not a single tip. So I'm like, okay. I come home. I go back out later on in the evening. I do 2 trips. Those 2 trips gave me like $85 or $95. The first trip was a lady. I had to go to this bar in Virginia Beach. Yeah, so when I went out earlier yesterday, I only did Norfolk trips. Only Norfolk, and that entire time I was in Norfolk, again, those 7 trips, no tips. I come home, Virginia Beach, I go out later on, I do 2 trips just in Virginia Beach, and they were like kind of long because Virginia Beach is a lot of land. Just in Virginia Beach, and I got like $85, $95. The first trip, a lady at a bar, she was getting off of work. I go to the bar, as there's a lady, she walks up to passenger side. She's like, "Hi, I'm such and such. It's not for me, I got the ride for my friend." And I'm like, oh, damn. Because I really don't like it when people get the ride for themselves and they don't use the guest feature. So I'm like, fuck, bro, come on, man. So I'm like, okay, all right, cool. I'm waiting. My 2 minutes are up. The friend's not out yet. So I pull around like the parking lot, and then I go, I'm not going to pull off. I'll come back. So I circle back around, and now the friend's coming out. She comes to the car. The friend's kind of drunk. The friend works there, but she was off. She just decided to go to work. I mean, she just decided to go in because it's a bar on her day off, right? The friend works there. She gets in. She tells me her name. I forgot it. She's asking me, stuff, and I came down. She had told me, she was like, yeah, I don't know how it got to it, but she was like, yeah, I can understand because, being somebody who works for tips, I understand completely. I don't even know why she said it. I think she asked, I don't know why she said it, but she said it, right? And I guess her friend who got her the trip knew what type of drunk she was. And she wasn't terrible, but she was kind of talkative. She even asked me, she was like, "Do you smoke weed?" And I'm like, "No." And then she said, "Oh, that's me." I'm like, okay. She's like, "I'm sorry, your car smells like weed." I'm like, "Yeah, you're okay. You're fine." So I don't know how, but we get around to it, and before she gets out, she hands me a $20 bill. I'm like, "Oh, thanks." She gets out, and then her friend who got her the Uber tipped me $5, and it was already a $5 ride. So I made 5 plus 5 plus 20. So I made $30 total because the friend who had a few drinks decided to give me a 20, and the friend who wasn't drunk, who was still working, was like, "Oh," I'm assuming she was like, "Sorry for my drunk friend, here's $5. So I made $30 off of that trip. That was one ride, and I only went like maybe 8 minutes away. The next trip was down the road. Well, it was a little further down the road. A boy, he was young. I'd give him anywhere between 17 to 23, maybe. He needed to go to basically across Virginia Beach, kind of. It was really in Chesapeake, but it was so close to Virginia Beach. It was like maybe 3 or 4 minutes away from the Virginia Beach border. So I took him from Virginia Beach to Chesapeake, and it was like a 26-minute ride. We're talking, and I kind of gave him a hard time at first because this is another person. Apparently his mom got him the ride. His mom's name was Heather. So I see a guy walk up to the car, and again, it's a safety concern. I don't open the door. I don't unlock the door. I ask, what's his name? And he's like, it should say Heather. And I'm like, okay, bro, you're a guy. Your name's not Heather. So I ask him his name. And he's like, oh, it's, he told me his name. And he was like, Heather's my mom. And I'm like, okay, all right, come on. I was like, yeah, man, I'm sorry to be a little stickler, but we don't know who we're picking up, and it says I'm picking up Heather. And he was like, no, completely understandable, this, that, and the third. Again, I was the asshole there, but you kind of gotta, your safety, like, as an Uber driver, Lyft driver, your safety is number one. So he said the person's name right, but I want to know, okay, like, what's going on? Anyway, so just to kind of apologize for being an asshole, I'm making small talk with him. We're talking, I'm telling him these stories about, how people try to scam Uber, how this lady one time was being really weird, how I had this guy in my car one time with a gun, and he didn't like pull it out, but he mentioned that he had it. It was like a Christmas Eve a while ago, or it was like after, I don't know, it was sometime around there. And then the guy, so he chuckled a few times at the story and whatnot. So close to it's time to like drop him off, he ends up telling me, have I heard an artist? I'm like, no, I've never heard of them. If they're new, he was like, oh, I'm gonna put you on. You should give this artist a try. It was like some chick named Laffy, I think. She does like classical blues or some shit like that. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, man, we'll see. And before he gets out of the car, he's like, I hear him fidgeting like what sounds to be money, right? And it's dark, it's nighttime. He's like, all right, this is for you. And I'm thinking he's sliding me like a few dollars. I'm like, oh, thanks. But then I see it wasn't $1 out of the corner of my eye. I'm like, oh, it's $5. I appreciate it. And then as I bring it, I was like, no, it's not a $5. Is it a $20? No, it's not a $20. It was a $50. And I said, thanks, but you for real? It was like, yeah. I was like, thank you, but why, bro? Like, why are you giving it to me? He was like, good conversation. I was like, good conversation? I'm just telling you my stories. Like, what? So I'm like, oh, I appreciate it, man. It's gonna come back tenfold on you, brother. It's gonna come back. You're gonna get that karma coming back to you. And I was, he answered that question as to why. He was like, oh, good conversation, and it's just been in my wallet, and I didn't know what to do with it. And that kind of made me skeptical. I'm like, you gave me a counterfeit bill, bro. I ain't say that, but I'm like, bro, you gave me a counterfeit bill, dog. And he was like, he was nice, and he got out the car, and then I had to call my wife. I was like, baby, this joker gave me $50, and then his mom tipped me $10. So it was a $18 trip on top of a $10 tip from his mom on top of a $50 from him. That was $78 from that I got off of that. I don't know. Why'd he give me 50? I don't know. Why'd his mom tip 10? I don't know. Because before, and it might have been this, before we pulled off, I verified the address. I usually verify the address of where we're going before we pull off. And he was like, oh no, it should be, and he told me the correct address. And I was like, well, can you get your mom to change it? And then he was like, yeah, I'll call her now. But then I remember us as Uber drivers, we can edit the destination. So I was like, you know what? I think I can do it. So I changed it. And then but I heard him on the phone with his mom when he called, and he was like, hey mom, I'm not going to his mom's house. I'm going to his dad's house. And then you just hear her go, absolutely not. And she was just going on in his ear. And I was like, hey, don't worry about it, bro. I got you. Don't worry about it. But, so I was able to change it, but I didn't know that me changing the address would increase it and would increase the fare. But he said he said his mom, he was like, don't worry about it. My mom, she's the type that she'll say no to something that I ask, and then as she's saying no, she wants to know the details because she's basically going to end up saying yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. So maybe because I changed it. I mean, he told his mom like whatever it increased to, he'll pay her back. But it was like for me, the fare, it just increased from like it increased from a $14 fare to an $18 fare. So if I'm getting about half, then his mom, she was paying 28, and she was paying 28, or yeah, she was paying 28, and then she ended up paying 36. So he said he would pay her back and all that, but yeah, I did 2 trips in Virginia Beach and got $100+. I did 7 trips in Norfolk and got $40. And that is why drivers in Norfolk will literally come to my city and do trips, because Norfolk seems to always lack drivers. I'll be deep in my city and I'll get a ride request for somebody 20-25 minutes away in Norfolk, and they're just trying to go 5 minutes down the road. And I'm like, okay, brother, like, I understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, but you gotta drive in your city. That's my concern, because again, I do this full time. This is what I do to make a living. So if I'm trying to ride to my city to make some money, but I can't even do ride to my city to make some money because you got the people who live in these other cities coming to my city to make money, because you can't make no real money in their city, or they don't want to drive in their city because they're like, the bad rap thing. That sucks for people who do this full time like me or in other drivers. So I mean, it's just crazy how I did 7 trips and made $40 in Norfolk, and then did 2 trips and made $100+ in Virginia Beach. Crazy. So I just wanted to tell you guys that story, because that $50 tip, that's the biggest tip I've ever gotten. And he's just like, oh, it was just in my wallet. Thanks for the conversation, bro. Like, what? Anyway, peace out. I'll holler at y'all.